Laudetur Jesus Christus, Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Saturday, May 8th, Pope Francis calls for the temporary relaxation of patent protections as a way to get more COVID-19 jabs into arms. Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Parolin says technological advances can help us better understand our own human nature. And Europeans prepare to celebrate Europe Day amid calls for more protection for migrants seeking refuge. In the Vatican, I'm Devin Watkins. Pope Francis sent a video message today as part of the Vax Live concert, which is voicing calls for nations to assist each other in dealing with the COVID crisis. The Pope stressed the need for deep healing both from the effects of the COVID-19 virus and the virus of individualism and closed nationalism. He also called for patent protections for COVID-19 vaccines to be temporarily suspended so that poorer nations can vaccinate their populations. Father Benedict Mayaki reports.
Pope Francis on Saturday sent a message to the participants at the Vax Live concert to reunite the world. The event, which takes place virtually, aims to celebrate the hope that the COVID-19 vaccines are offering families and communities around the world and is also part of a growing chorus of voices seeking wider and more equitable distribution of the vaccines. In the video message, Pope Francis stressed that amid the darkness and uncertainty brought about by the ongoing pandemic, we need light and hope, and we need paths of healing and salvation. He added that the healing he refers to is healing from the roots, which cures the causes of evil and is not limited only to the symptoms. He also encouraged everyone not to forget the most vulnerable in the face of the pandemic, which has produced death and suffering and has further exacerbated already existing social and environmental crises. Illustrating some of the ills we need to heal from, the Pope noted that we need to heal from the virus of individualism, which does not make us any freer or more equal, but rather makes us indifferent to the sufferings of others. He added that other variants of this cultural virus include closed nationalism, which prevents the sharing of vaccines, and situations when we put the laws of the market or intellectual property above the laws of love and the health of others. Likewise, he noted that another variant of the virus is when we believe in and foment a sick economy that allows a very rich few to possess more than all the rest of humanity. The Pope went on to highlight the interconnectedness of everything, pointing out that every social injustice and act of marginalization against poor people also affects the environment. He said that God instills in our hearts a new and generous spirit that enables us to abandon individualism in order to promote the common good. The Pope then reminded everyone that we do not come out of a crisis the same. We either come out better or worse. He thus implored the Lord for the gift of a new brotherhood and a universal solidarity so that we may recognize the good and the beauty He has sown in each one of us. I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.
The Vatican's Pontifical Council for Culture is hosting an international conference entitled Exploring the Mind, Body, and Soul, How Innovation and Novel Delivery Systems Improve Human Health. Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Parolin sent a video message to the event and encouraged participants to discover what makes us truly human. Thaddeus Jones has the story.
On the final day of the 5th International Conference on Exploring the Mind, Body, and Soul, How Innovation and Novel Delivery Systems Improve Human Health, Cardinal Pietro Parolin sent his own reflections and a video message in Italian shared during the virtual proceedings. The meeting was organized by the Vatican's Pontifical Council for Culture, the Cura Foundation, and the Science and Faith Foundation. In his remarks, Cardinal Parolin noted the interdisciplinary nature of the meeting, addressing themes on ecology, economics, technologies used in healthcare, and philanthropy. He said the uniting thread was the impact on the human person and understanding better our identity as human beings. Today, said Cardinal Parolin, humanity is called to look at itself without presuming absolute superiority, since we're not the only living beings that share the same planet, and our lives depend on many other living organisms that are part of a delicately balanced ecosystem. He observed that while we have shared characteristics with the animal world, human beings are unique given our rationality, moral conscience, aesthetic sense, and openness to the transcendent. Concerning rationality, he noted that humans have a high sense of self-understanding since we reflect not only on ourselves, but also on others and the universe around us. We've developed technology to improve our living conditions and health, as well as systems and structures affecting how we live, think, and act. He went on to note how our moral conscience helps us distinguish between good and evil, making us think about ethical questions regarding our actions, individually and communally. A strong moral sense pushes us to denounce and take actions that put an end to injustice through humanitarian outreach and solidarity, he said. The aesthetic sense, he added, also marks a unique characteristic of human beings, since we're able to contemplate beauty and express it in the many forms of art. Finally, the most sublime dimension of human existence, he underscored, is our openness to the transcendent horizon that in the lives of many of us results in religious experience. In conclusion, he encouraged the meeting participants to continue to deepen the mystery of our existence with enthusiasm and determination to discover and remain fascinated by what makes us truly human. I'm Thaddeus Jones.
As the European Union prepares to mark Europe Day on Sunday, one of Europe's top cardinals is urging leaders to work harder to protect the rights of those who seek refuge on the continent. Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich spoke to me earlier in the day to express his hopes for the future of Europe. The president of the Commission of the EU Bishops' Conferences said Europe needs to show more solidarity with those inside the Union as well as those outside it.
I really hope for more solidarity. Solidarity among the countries, but also solidarity inside the countries. Solidarity with the poor, because we have a new poor in Europe because of this pandemic. So we have to get to the core of the social problem. We have to tackle climate change. The Green Deal of Europe, I think, is very important. We have to see how we can strengthen democracy in Europe. I think we need some European media in order to have also media control of European politics and a common conscience among the citizens of Europe. I would like to speak in favor of the migrants and refugees. I think Europe is doing very badly at the moment. It is a shame. So we have to face the situation that people die now very often on the Mediterranean. They die in the Atlantic Ocean. They die in front of Europe. Europe is seeing them and does not act. The European Union lets people die. I mean, that is surely not compatible with the values of the European Union. So when we speak about these values, we should be honest.
What are some of the main priorities and the main challenges for Europe going into the future?
We have to look about the concept of European integration. I would like that we live more the teaching of the Pope in Fratelli Tutti, so that the European Union could show how the rich countries could contribute to more fraternity in the world.
Thanks there to Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, the Archbishop of Luxembourg. In India, COVID cases continue to surge across the nation, with 2 southern states becoming the most recent to declare lockdowns. The states of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka are seeing swelling caseloads. Over 401,000 new cases were reported across India on Saturday, along with a record of 4,100 official deaths, though experts say the real toll is much higher. Dr. Roderico Offren is the World Health Organization's representative in India. He says it is important to remember that India was completely open for business just 2 short months ago.
The reasons are multifactorial. There are many reasons for this, but basic is that we gave the virus a chance to keep transmitting. There is some evidence of variants such as the B.1.17 as being more contagious, has more transmissibility, and so is the B.1.617, which has double mutations. But that alone, there's not much proof yet in terms of if it's the single driver of this rapid rise in cases. As I said, there were also other factors that allowed the virus to continue to transmit, to continue to infect other people. And that's because COVID-appropriate behaviors were not being followed. I think this is an important message, that we have a responsibility in curbing the spread. And more than the variants, the original SARS-CoV-2 is also still the dominant virus. So in that sense, these measures are still very valid and continue to be effective. So that needs to be done. The pattern of how this has spread, of the waves, whether it was in Europe or the US, was fairly similar, but the scale is very different. The density of the population is also probably a factor for this. That's why, if you notice, the spikes are in the metros. If you notice also early in the weeks as these cases were rising, the system was able to absorb, whether it was for testing, because that scaled up fast last year. Extra beds were also being put up last year, and which are now you're also seeing. So it's a scale issue.
That was Dr. Roderico Offren, the WHO's representative in India. And finally, Caritas Europa has appealed for safe and unimpeded access to all people in need in eastern Ukraine, urging parties in the conflict there to respect the rights and dignity of innocent civilians in the region. The call came on Saturday as a Caritas Europa delegation concluded a visit to the region that has witnessed armed conflict for more than 7 years now. Robin Gomes has the details.
Caritas Europa, that brings together 49 social and development organizations of the Catholic Church in Europe, expressed fear that since the beginning of the year, hostilities have been growing in eastern Ukraine, with a fear of the revival of what it called the neglected conflict between Ukraine and Russian-backed separatists. Caritas Europa warned of a risk that the conflict, which now affects more than 500,000 people in the immediate combat zone, will expand across a much wider area and impact exponentially many more individuals. Many of these people, who are elderly or belong to other vulnerable groups, are already subject to regular shelling and shooting and run the risk of landmines, Caritas Europa said. The recent ceasefire violations and the spread of COVID-19 have deepened the vulnerability of people in need even further, putting their lives, health and welfare at great risk, said Monsignor Michael Landau, president of Caritas Europa. On Saturday, he concluded a 3-day visit to the country, which included a visit to the government-controlled areas straddling the 400-kilometer-long contact line. The delegation, which also included Andriy Waskovich, president of Caritas Ukraine, noted that the prices of essential goods and unemployment have soared in the region, where Caritas have been supporting the people throughout the conflict. Monsignor Landau echoed calls made by Pope Francis to protect innocent civilians and the most vulnerable caught in the conflict. He said, providing safe and unimpeded access to all people in need is a basic tenet of international humanitarian law. We call on all parties to have respect for those rights and to respect the human dignity of people who have done nothing wrong except that their homes are now in what has become a combat zone. With the recent buildup of Russian troops in Ukraine's border, there is fear that the separatist conflict may flare into a full-blown war between Ukraine and Russia. I am Robin Gomes.
That brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, go to our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. There you can also find all of our broadcasts in podcast form. And don't forget to catch the latest updates on our Facebook page and Twitter feed. In the Vatican, I'm Devin Watkins.